So while we're still waiting on parts, we have the opportunity to do some things on the electrical side, like get rid of this old switch panel and swap in the switch panel that has the auxiliary switches on it. So stick around. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and today we're going to dive into some of the electrical things that we're wanting to do while we still have the motor out. We've got a lot of space to work up in that engine bay, so it's a good opportunity. So we are going to focus on a couple things. Specifically today, we're looking at installing a way of disabling the traction control, Stabilitrak, and ABS. If you watch the videos whenever we were trying to race the truck, we were having an issue where it was taking off so hard in first gear that basically Stabilitrak was kicking it on and putting it into a weird limp mode that was causing it to rev out at 4,000. Thanks for the guys that gave me the shout out on that. I did some research on there and found that there's a guy that makes a switch, $100. It fits in one of the cigarette lighters, and so I did a little more research on my own and found out, well, literally it's about a $2 switch. I've got a bag of them here, little $2 switch, and I can put a link to this down below on Amazon. That will fit in the lighter slot, and then the connector, at least on the Silverados, is an EV6 injector style connector. So I went out and found an injector connector extension for I think $12, and the goal behind that is to just cut this thing off. We will jumper one wire across, and then the other one will put a break in it. Normally you would just go from the switch, and whenever the switch is on, it closes the circuit and everything is good to go that way. Then whenever you want to disable ABS and Stabilitrak, you just open that switch up, and then it throws it into, hey, something's wrong with the ABS. But in doing so, it shuts everything off. Well, then I remembered after that, man, I've got this sweet factory upfitter switch panel that I bought 3 years ago for the truck, and it has 4 auxiliary points on it that are toggle switches. And if you have the auxiliary upfitter kit, you have relays and stuff installed. I don't have that, but what we can do is these switches are acting as a ground switch. There is a ground terminal that should already be landed, but we'll verify. Then whenever the switch is made, it should provide us a ground signal. So what we're going to do is enable these to do things like control a relay that will open up our Stabilitrak shutoff harness. So whenever we hit aux 1, Stabilitrak will be disabled, and it has nice LEDs across the front so you know when they're active. So, and then we can turn Stabilitrak, ABS, and things like that back on. Same ordeal with 2, 3, and 4. We're adding nitrous on here. We want to have the ability to turn the nitrous on, so we will wire up a relay, or we can just take the ground side because there's not a lot of load on that thing, to the aux 2. Whenever it's on, that means the nitrous is enabled, and then we'll have it triggered off our steering wheel button. And then also the same way with our 2-step. If we want to turn the 2-step on, we can enable the 2-step system. Then whenever we hold the button, the 2-step will be active. Whenever it's off, even if we're holding the button, say we want to use it for the line locks, but we don't want a 2-step for a burnout or something, we can disable the 2-step and the nitrous, and it gives us some flexibility. So what we're going to do is break it out into this. Now, if you look up the wiring diagram, there is 5 pins involved across this, one of them being the ground. That's going to be on pin 15. Pin 10, 11, 12, and 13. Pin 14 is the ground. 10, 11, 12, and 13 are the wires that you're going to want to tap into. Now, these do go over to a different panel, but there's no guarantee that the pins are in the panel to where you could go to actually get it. But there are wires on there that we can split off of. And so what I've done is go in, find a wire that's close to the color, and I've ran an auxiliary harness from the engine bay back into the center console, found a wire, spliced it, basically cut it off, used solder or the uninsulated crimpers on there, and then crimped them, heat shrinked them down. And so now I have 4 trigger wires that are ground triggers whenever these switches are on. Let's go take a look. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to kind of see what I'm working with here. This is kind of the brain center, and this is the harness that I built that goes into the center console. This is the main connections for our Maximizer 5. I'll be doing a video on the install of this later on. And so we will have an enable switch off of one of those coming to the Maximizer 5. And then I put an aluminum bar over here, you can't really see, with holes already drilled into it so I can rivet in standard automotive relays. And I've got one installed already. I'm waiting on more to come, but we'll have the ability to mount up, 4 or 5 relays in here that we can quickly tie back the ground side of those to trigger the relays to the 4 wires in which I've already labeled them. If you don't have a label maker and you're doing a project this big, I highly suggest go out, buy a label maker. Being able to label these wires has been so nice, and that way whenever we come back in, I know that this is the map sensor front side of the engine, and then I've got a map sensor backside. I've got my TPS, or my manifold air temperature here. So what all are we going to have to hook up? Well, as I said, the Maximizer 5, we're going to want to be able to enable, disable it. I've got the Lingenfelter 2-step underneath here. We'll want to be able to send it an enable trigger much in the same way. And then we're going to tie into the sensor, the ABS, or the wheel speed sensor on the driver's side front. It's right down there. So we'll be able to hook into this relay, make a short harness down to there, and then hit that switch and disable ABS. Okay, I know it's pretty dark in here and I apologize for that, but this is the harness. This is an auxiliary harness for systems that we don't have on our vehicle. You can quickly check on the back side. I bought the switch panel that just has the traction control off and the bed lights because that's all I have as options on this truck. And then, as I said, I came in here, found the 4 wires that would normally go to the upfitter switches, cut those short, and then crimped them and put some some heat shrink on them. And then there is a back shell, if I can. Then there's a back shell that clips back in place, kind of like this is a automotive or one of the ECM connectors. You'll want to peel it off to the side, and it'll slide into place and clip and lock. Okay. Whenever you go to remove this switch panel, you're going to have to go ahead and pull your 4 screws out from around your radio. This trim bezel will pop out because there's one up top to get. But other than that, we'll come in, clip this one back in place even though it does nothing, and then this one locks in like an ECU connector, and we should be good to go. We're not going to bolt this in just yet. Even though we don't have power to this thing, we should still be able to test these relays to ground. Pop loose. There we go. Tuck these wires back, make sure they're out of the way. There we go. And I've got quite a few spare wires in here for future use in case I need them. It's always a good idea whenever you're running any kind of wires like this to go ahead and pull as many spares as you can. So I have about 10 wire automotive grade wires that I keep around in different colors, and I'll do a harness of about 10 every time. That way I've got spares ready to go. It saves you a lot of hassle down the road. Okay, so I've got the wiring for aux 1. That's the one that we're going to tie back to the ground of our relay. But first, let's check it out, make sure it's right. I've got my multimeter to a good known ground, and then I've got my other side to the signal coming from that with it on continuity with the toner on. So I'm going to go hit the button for aux 1, and whenever I do that, we should hear this thing start to make noise. Okay, we've got a good ground on aux 1 here now, so we can go ahead and turn this thing off. We've verified that. Now we can use it to wire up the relay. What we're going to do in this situation is we're going to actually have multiple relays. So we're going to bridge the coil power to one fuse. Relays in themselves don't take a lot of amp draw on them. It's whenever you're putting devices across them that has a huge amp draw. Because of that, we can use one, say 5-10 amp fuse, and we can power 4 or 5 relay coils, and then we can use our auxiliary wires to provide the ground to the coils, which will then close or open the coil. In this case, we're going to have it closed on the normally closed contacts for the circuit. Then whenever it's energized, it'll open up the circuit to the ABS sensor. Okay, for doing our harness in between our existing connectors, pretty straightforward. These two go together, but they're not going to in the car. Literally, one will be coming in from your wheel speed sensor, the other one will be going back to the ECM, or actually the ABS module. So what we'll do is we'll pick one pair that's on the same side, in this case the bottom two, and we will cut those and splice those together so they're always connected. And then we're going to take the other pair and we're going to cut those in half and run them up to our relay. Now on our relay, you got to pay attention to which pins are which. We want to make sure that we are on the normally closed contacts, which are generally 30, which is your constant or your common, and then 87A is your normally closed. 87 is your normally open, meaning that whenever the solenoid or the relay is energized, constant is connected to 87. Whenever it's de-energized, it's connected to 87A. So we want this in normal operation. the normal close to be on 87A and constant. Then whenever we hit that button in there, it lights up, the relay clicks in, it will break that circuit and disable our ABS. Whoa. Okay, this is the nice thing about having the engine out still. We can come right down in here, easily get access to stuff, and I don't know if you'll really be able to see it down here, but the connector's right here. It's got one of those stupid red clips on it that makes it next to impossible to get out. Let me see if I can. There we go. And we've ran it all the way back to our relay and loomed it up nice and clean. And ran our wire down the backside out of the way. Come on, booger, pop loose. There we go. And one end will go into the harness side, clicks into place. The other into the wheel sensor. Click it in place and then put it back on its mounting tab and we're done. How's that for easy? Well, that's just one wiring dilemma buttoned up here. As you can see, I've got so much else to take care of, but hopefully this will help some of you guys out in the future wanting to disable ABS, stuff like that. As I said, check your ABS or your wheel speed sensor connector. I'm sure the Gen 5s, most of them are probably all using the US car EV6 style injector connector, plugs right into place, latches down. Or you can go out and buy one of the pre-made ones. As I said, they're about $100, which isn't the worst thing on the face of the planet. It comes with all the wires and connectors and the switch, so not too bad. But I wanted to use that auxiliary panel, and so this kind of works out best for me. So now that I've done that, I need to go in here, label that relay so I know what it is. I'll do the same thing. I'm waiting on my white lettering on black tape to show up so I can do labels for the auxiliary switch panel itself, and I'll label each switch as to what they are. But make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell because we're going to be hooking up the two-step, the Maximizer 5, all this other electronic stuff we're going to be putting on different circuits so we can have different ways of individually controlling them. And then whenever it comes time to actually make a hit, we're going to have, you know, the nitrous on, the two-step on, and the trans brake on with the traction control off. Not the trans brake, but the roll stop. Line lock. We'll be putting a line lock in this here soon, so you don't want to miss out on all that. Hopefully the cam shows up this week and we get that installed. But other than that, I got plenty of work to do. Keep your eyes peeled for more videos in the future. You know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage. Remember, ABT, always be tuning.